Imagine watching yourself die. Really picture it. The concept of watching a person who believes they are you die. This person has all your memories, looks identical to you. For all intents and purposes, it is you. You died. Imagine watching something so out of your frame of reference transpire before your eyes and smiling. Infinity Pool is an insane film. By the time the film ended, I'd only eaten half of my popcorn. I was so shocked that I'd forgotten to eat the rest. So I just sat in my theater while everyone else left, eating popcorn, while an eerie red glow filled the room. This is an oppressive movie. The audio and visuals of this movie combined create an atmosphere in which the film tells you you cannot comprehend the nature of what we're showing you. And you're gonna keep watching. This movie is definitely not for everyone. It's weird and trippy, and if you aren't into crazy movies, you're gonna find this one off-putting. But if you have a passing interest in horror and psychological films, I would give this one a watch. I'm going to be spoiling this movie in this review, so if you have any interest in watching Infinity Pool, click off this video and come back after you've experienced this film. It's worth giving it a chance. This movie begins with a portion of seemingly normal events. A couple are staying at a resort in a country they do not understand. After meeting another couple, they decide to go on a day trip outside of the safety of the tourist compound. This portion of the movie is devoid of any of the psychedelic and unnatural aspects that come to define Infinity Pool, but the movie is filled to the brim with cinematography that is designed to make you uncomfortable. This movie is shot with an interesting emphasis on focus, with characters often being completely out of focus during conversations. This causes you to feel like you're only partially experiencing the events of the movie, a feeling which is clearly intentional on the part of the filmmakers. Just like the characters in the movie, the viewer is unable to fully get a grasp of reality, an idea reflected in the first exchange of dialogue in the film. I do have one problem with this introductory section of the movie. The music choices and cinematography make it clear that shit is going to hit the fan, and the introduction takes a bit too long for the actual nature of the movie to match the atmosphere presented by the music and camera work. Because of this, I felt the movie dragged a bit around the end of this section, and I was waiting for the plot to really begin. On their way back from their outing in the town, the couples get into a car accident, which results in the death of a local man, and James Foster, the driver of the car, is sentenced to execution. This is where the real experience, that is Infinity Pool, begins. James is told of a practice offered by the local government of this country, in which tourists are allowed to pay money to have a clone of themselves created, and then executed in their place. This clone is given all of the person's memories, believing that they are real right up until the moment of their death. Obviously, this raises the question of how does one know if they're real after discovering this knowledge? And the movie answers this question by having the characters avoid it. In an offhanded line of dialogue, a character asks James, "How do you know if you're the real one or the copy? We don't know what they do after you go into that little room. They could swap the two of you while you sleep and we would never know." And is then shut down by laughing remarks. This is the only time the characters acknowledge this concept, but the movie does not forget it. This is where the real horror of Infinity Pool stems from. The cast consists of a group of people who have all had to sit there and watch themselves die. And this is a movie about what that does to a person. How does one continue living knowing that a version of themselves has been killed? Remembering the experience of watching themselves die, never being able to fully believe that they are who they think they are. There's only one answer in Infinity Pool. Stop giving a fuck. Later on in the movie, the characters are once again forced to watch themselves die. But this series of events is far stranger. This time, the audience watches from the perspective of the ones killed, with no indication that the ones dying have been cloned. The characters are told that, this time, they're not going to be clones, and instead they're brought to the execution room to be killed. The viewer is given no indication that the characters they are watching right now are different from the ones they've been watching up until this point, until the camera pans back, and all the other characters are watching this execution. And they're not looking away in horror at the sight of their own necks being slit. They're not eerily smiling like James did earlier. They're cheering. This is all a game to them. The lives of their clones mean nothing to these people. And how could they? If you were forced to grapple with these ideas, with watching someone who thinks that they're you be killed, could you keep any sense of reality? This concept was so interesting to me. Every aspect of this film works together to push this idea that reality is slowly making less and less sense. The country that these people find themselves in is so alien and impossible, and the inclusion of outright sci-fi elements like the clones makes the world of Infinity Pool one where no established rules exist. Many sequences in this film are prolonged drug trips, in which scenes bleed into one another with no indication of which scenes are set in reality. The characters in this movie are broken, which brings me to the most impressive piece of this movie: the acting. Every single actor in this movie is giving it their all, but the standout performances come from Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth. Alexander plays James in a way that convincingly shows that he's losing his grasp on reality, and Mia plays Gabby with such convincing insanity that the audience begins to lose their grasp on reality themselves, right alongside James. There are moments in this movie in which characters are doing things that are so unbelievably weird that I was compelled to laugh. And yet my immersion was never broken. These people are so broken that their actions are nonsensical and illogical, and yet the horror of this movie stems from the fact that their insanity is justified. This movie left me with a lot of thoughts in my head. Like the characters, I had a hard time grappling with the events that had transpired in front of me. While I really liked this movie, I believe there were some pacing issues in the first and third acts, but the brilliant pace of the second act makes up for those flaws in my mind. I talked about the pacing issues in the first act already, but some of the events in the third act seemed rushed and rapid fire. And I believe this third act can push people who are on the fence about whether or not they liked this movie into deciding that it was just weird for weirdness' sake. And I understand where they're coming from, but I believe this movie's justified in its horror, and its mind-bending elements complement it in a good way. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I know it's very different from the usual type of content I make, but I really like watching videos like this, so I figured I might want to try one out. The scripting's a little bit rough, because I haven't really written a script for a video like this before, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and please let me know in the comments if you have any tips or pointers or criticisms for me, because those are really helpful. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you're looking forward to what I make next. Bye!